Why do certain people feel they belong to Japan, even having never been there? Why are others born on Japanese soil carrying gifts the world needs to see? And why do some souls cross oceans, abandon everything, just to breathe the air of Tokyo, Kyoto, or a small village lost in the mountains? This is not a documentary about tourism. It's about invisible callings, about contracts your soul signed before you were born. There's something in Japan that goes beyond temples, technology, and cherry blossoms. Something that attracts, transforms, and teaches. What if I told you that your connection to this country is no accident? Whether you're Japanese by birth, an immigrant who chose these islands, or someone who looks at Mount Fuji in photographs, feeling homesick for a place you've never been, your soul knows exactly why. In Japan, there's a concept called wabi-sabi, the profound beauty of what is imperfect, incomplete, impermanent. A cracked ceramic bowl is worth more when its fissures are filled with gold. There is ma, the empty space between musical notes, between words, between breaths. Where true meaning lives, there is shigana, the serene acceptance of what cannot be changed, the peace of releasing control. And there is the impossible dance between ancient tradition and radical future. Buddhist monks who post on Instagram, Shinto shrines beside neon skyscrapers, tea ceremonies performed with the same reverence as centuries ago. While bullet trains cut through the country at 300 kilometers per hour, your soul didn't choose Japan by chance. It chose these lessons. If you were born here, you carry these truths in your blood. But perhaps you've never stopped to see the gift that is. If you chose to come, your soul knew it needed to unlearn something. That Japan would break you, to rebuild you better. And if you only feel the attraction, sitting on the other side of the world, perhaps your soul has already lived here before, or needs to live here still. In the next minutes, we'll dive into the invisible spirit of Japan. We'll discover what this country teaches about being human, about accepting impermanence, about finding meaning in silence, about releasing what we cannot control, and about dancing between ancient and new without losing our soul. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to discover may forever change how you see your own journey. Welcome to the mystery of your connection to Japan. Japan is not just a country. Why? It's a living philosophy. Why? Sculpted by volcanoes, tsunamis, earthquake. S by a geography that never let you forge. T that nothing lasts forever. Our four tectonic plates meet beneath these islands. S the earth tremble. S the ground beneath your feet can open at any moment. T and ye. T the Japanese built civilization. S garden. S hair. T knowing all of this could disappear tomorrow. W this is the origin of wabi-sabi, a beauty found not despite impermanence, but because of I. T look at a 1,400-year-old wooden temple. Its beams are crooked. D the paint has peel. D fungi grow at the edge. S and the Japanese don't restore it to look any. W they honored the marks of Tim. E because imperfection tells a story. Why aging is sacred. D in the West we fight against him. E Botox surgeries filter. S trying to freeze you out. H in Japan there is a war. D Shibu are the beauty that only comes with aging. E a wrinkled face carries wisdom. M an object worn by use as so. L kintsugi are the art of repairing broken ceramics with golden lacquer. Are you broke your favorite tea bowl? Don't throw it out. Why celebrate the crack? S fill them with Joel. D because what has been broken and heal. D is more valuable than something never won. D your scar is your store. Why your flaw is your character. This isn't just about object. S it's about yo. You about E about all of us carrying broken part. S trying to hide the M pretending perfection. N and Japan whisper. S show your fissure. S there where the light enter. S Japan's very nature teaches T. S Sakura, a cherry blossoms bloom for only we. K millions of people stop everything to contemplate. E knowing that in day. S the petals will fall. El mono no war. E the bittersweet beauty of knowing nothing remain. S why are the flowers so beautiful? Because they do. E why does that moment with someone you love touch you so deeply? Because it will never return exactly like this guy. And Japan has been devastated. D wars, bombs, earthquakes, tsunami. S in each Tim. E it rise. S not trying to return to what it was. S but integrating the SCA. are becoming something any. W without denying what wa. S Hiroshima today doesn't hide its history. Why it transforms it into a monument of peak. E origami, the art of folding paper. Are you take something flat, common, imperfect. T, and through patience and precise fold. S create beauty. Why but the fold marks remain, and they should remain. And because each crease tells how you got. E wabi-sabi isn't about accepting mediocrity. Why it's about recognizing that perfection is an illusion, and in that true beauty lies an authenticity. Why in natural we are in the flow of Tim. E in the marks life leaves on you. U there's a type of Japanese ceramics called hagiek. The more you use I, T the more it changes kolo, are absorbing the T, developing unique tonality. S the master's essay. Why Hagiaki bowl only reaches its true beauty after 7 generations of us. E 7 generations. Imagine valuing something not for what is any. W, but for what it becomes with time. What if you applied this to yourself? What if your wrinkles were beautiful? What if your failures were your strengths? What if you stopped fighting the flow and let life's river sculpt you, knowing that each mark is gold? If you were born in Japan, your soul chose one of the most subtle and profound trainings on the planet. You didn't come here by accident. You came to learn what the rest of the world still doesn't understand, that emptiness is not absence, it's presence. The space between words, between notes, between breaths. That's where meaning lives. In the West, we fill every silence. Constant music, notifications, conversations that never stop. We fear emptiness. But you, born in Japan, were taught since childhood that silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. In traditional Japanese, music pauses are as important as notes. A shakuhachi master can play a single note, and then nothing, and in that nothing is everything. In Japanese architecture, empty spaces are intentional. An almost empty tatami room is not poverty. It's clarity. It's letting the mind breathe. You carry this in your blood, this capacity to be comfortable with what is unsaid, with what is not shown, with what doesn't need explanation. But here's the challenge. You may have this gift and never recognized its value. We live in an era where everyone shouts to be heard, where silence is confused with weakness, and you, accustomed to communicating between the lines, may feel nobody understands you. Shigana, it cannot be helped. It's not defeatist resignation. It's ancient wisdom. Earthquakes will happen. You cannot prevent them, so you build flexible houses that sway but don't break. The cherry tree will lose its flowers. You cannot hold them, so you contemplate each petal while it's here. Your boss will overload you with work. The train will be delayed. Rain will ruin your plans. Shogun, releasing what you don't control to preserve energy for what you do control. But careful, because this acceptance can become imprisonment. How many Japanese remain trapped in toxic situations, dead relationships, jobs that destroy the soul, saying shigane, when in truth they should be fighting? The lesson isn't to accept everything. It's knowing how to discern what is an inevitable earthquake and what is a door you choose not to open. You were born in a land that dances between extremes, 1,000-year-old temples and robots serving coffee, tea ceremonies with gestures unchanged for centuries, and video games reinventing realities, Buddhist monks meditating at dawn and posting enlightenment on Instagram by noon. This is your heritage, the capacity to honor the ancient without rejecting the new, to respect tradition without being enslaved by it. But perhaps you feel the pressure, the weight of ancestral expectations, the obligation to be perfect, not to shame the family, to follow the laid path. And here's the paradox. Japan taught you wabi-sabi, beauty in imperfection, but society demands relentless perfection. Tachima, space to breathe, but suffocates you with endless work hours. Taught you shigana, release control, but punishes you for any deviation from protocol. So what is the true gift of being born Japanese? It's having access to this profound wisdom, even when the society around seems to have forgotten it. It's being able to return to the roots, to Zen gardens, to tea ceremonies, to Buddhist teachings, and rediscover that you don't need to shout to be heard, that your silences carry wisdom, that your imperfections are your gold, that releasing what you can't control frees you to dance with what you can, that you can honor your ancestors and still choose your own path. You who were born in Japan, carry lanterns in an age that forgot darkness. Carry pauses in a symphony of noise. Carry acceptance in a world obsessed with control. Don't let anyone convince you that these qualities are weaknesses. They are superpowers that the world is desperate to learn. If you chose Japan, if you crossed oceans, learned an impossible language, embraced a culture that wasn't yours by birth, your soul knew exactly what it was doing. You didn't come seeking anime or sushi. You came seeking healing. You came because something in your previous life was broken, and you unconsciously knew that Japan possesses the gold to fill your cracks. Perhaps you come from a culture that taught you to shout to be seen, and Japan teaches you that silence is power, that you don't need to explain everything, that the wisest people are those who speak least. The empty space you so feared becomes your refuge. You learn that solitude is not abandonment. It's sanctuary, that an empty room is not sadness. It's mental clarity, that pauses in conversation aren't awkward. They're where truth breathes. Perhaps you come from a place where perfection was mandatory, where each failure was shame, where you spent your life hiding your scars, and then you discover kintsugi and you cry because finally someone is saying that being broken and repaired is more beautiful than never having cracked. Wabi-sabi becomes your liberation. You stop fighting against aging, against your imperfections, against your failures, and begin to see them as story, as character, as gold. But the hardest lesson is shigana. You who came from cultures where giving up is a curse word, where accepting is weakness, where you must control everything or it's failure. Japan breaks you, puts you on your knees, and whispers, let go. You cannot control the earthquake. You cannot hold the cherry blossom petals. You cannot make the Japanese accept you completely just because you want it. Shigana. And at first, it hurts, feels like defeat. But after months, years living here, you realize that releasing what you don't control gives you energy to transform what you can. You stop fighting Japanese bureaucracy and learn to dance with it. You stop trying to be perfect in Japanese and accept that your accent is part of your story. You stop expecting to be completely accepted and find beauty in being eternally foreign, a bridge between worlds. And then something magical happens. You came seeking Japan, realize that Japan was seeking you. Your soul needed this cultural shock, this strangeness, this total deconstruction of who you thought you were, to be reborn as something new. You begin to live the Japanese duality. You respect the country's tradition, but bring your own innovation. You honor customs, but don't lose your essence. You become the bridge between Japan and your country of origin, between ancient and new, between East and West. And this is your mission. You didn't come to become Japanese. That's impossible and shouldn't even be the goal. You came to integrate, to take the ancient wisdom from here and mix it with your own, to be living kintsugi. Cracks filled with gold from two cultures. You learn to bow, but keep your warm embrace. You practice silence, but don't lose your voice. You accept impermanence, but still fight for what matters. The Japanese around you may never say this, but they see. They see your courage to leave everything. They see your effort to learn the language. They see you trying to understand, even when it's incomprehensible. And although Japanese society is closed, your soul is already part of this land because you chose, and choice is the most sacred contract that exists. You who chose Japan are exactly where your soul needs to be, being broken, being repaired, being filled with gold, becoming a masterpiece that could only exist by crossing oceans to arrive here. And you, who never set foot in Japan, but feel you've already been there, who look at Mount Fuji in photographs And something inside you recognizes who hears shakuhachi for the first time. And tears come without explanation who see a Buddhist temple and feel homesick for a place you've never been. Your soul also has a contract with this country, perhaps the most mysterious of all. There are souls that carry memories of lives the mind forgot, but the heart remembers. Perhaps you were a monk in the 12th century, meditating in caves in the mountains of Koyasan, perhaps a geisha in Kyoto, mastering the art of communicating in pauses, in what is unsaid, perhaps a samurai. Learning that true strength lies in knowing when to release the sword. This sounds mystical, and it is, but Japan always understood that not everything needs rational explanation. The empty space, is where mysteries live. It's where your soul whispers truths that your logical mind will never comprehend. You who feel attraction to Japan without ever having gone are being called, but perhaps the call is not to buy a ticket. Perhaps it's to integrate the lessons. Right where you are, Wabi Sabi is calling you to stop pretending perfection on social media, to show your wrinkles, your failures, your scars, and call them gold, to accept that you are incomplete, and that this is exactly as it should be. Shiganai is calling you to release obsessive control, to stop trying to manage every variable of life, to understand that some earthquakes need to happen for you to build more flexible foundations. Ma is calling you to turn off your phone, to sit in silence, and not call it waste of time, to understand that emptiness is not the enemy. It's where you finally hear who you really are. The dance between tradition and future is calling you to honor your roots without being their prisoner, to respect where you came from, while creating who you're becoming, to be the millennial temple and the neon skyscraper. At the same time, you don't need to live in Japan to live Japanese philosophy. In fact, perhaps your mission is exactly the opposite, to take these lessons wherever you are, to be kintsugi in Brazil and Portugal and Mexico, in Angola, to be the pause in an accelerated conversation, to be acceptance in a culture of control, to be honest imperfection in an era of filters. You who feel the calling but don't understand where it comes from, stop looking for explanations. Japan teaches you that not everything needs to be explained to be true. Perhaps you'll never go to Japan in this lifetime, and that's okay, because the Japan that calls you is not a place on the map. It's a state of consciousness. It's a way of seeing the world. It's recognizing beauty in the imperfect, meaning in emptiness, peace in the uncontrollable, and wisdom in the dance between ancient and new. When you look at that photo of Mount Fuji and your heart tightens, it's not nostalgia for what was, it's recognition of what you need to become. Japan is not a destination. It's a mirror showing you that you already carry everything you seek. Cherry blossom petals fall, not because the tree failed to hold them, but because releasing is part of the beauty. You are broken, not to remain in pieces, but to be rebuilt with gold. You feel emptiness, not because something is missing, but because finally there is space for what truly matters to enter. You are pulled between past and future, not because you're lost, but because you're being sculpted into a living bridge between worlds. The invisible calling of Japan is not for you to go there. It's for you to awaken and realize that Japan has always been inside you. So now you understand why your soul was born in Japan, why it chose to cross oceans to arrive here, why you feel an inexplicable calling. Even from afar, it wasn't accident. It wasn't coincidence. It was curriculum. Japan is a spiritual school, disguised as a country, and you enrolled one way or another to learn 4 lessons that will transform not only you, but the world around you. First lesson, wabi sabi. Perfection is a lie. True beauty lies in the cracks, in the wear, in the marks that time leaves. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be authentic. Your scars aren't shame, they're gold. Your story isn't a defect, it's character. Second lesson, emptiness is not absence, it's presence. Silence is not weakness, it's power. The pauses between words, the spaces between things, that's where meaning lives. In an era of constant noise, You learned to hear what isn't said in a culture of excess. You discovered that less is more. Third lesson, Shigana. You don't control the earthquake. You don't hold the cherry blossom petals. Releasing what's beyond your reach isn't giving up. It's wisdom. It's conserving energy to transform what you truly can change. It's the difference between rigidity that breaks and flexibility that survives. Fourth lesson, the dance between tradition and future. You can honor where you came from without being a prisoner of the past. Can respect ancestral wisdom while creating the new. Can be the millennial temple and the neon skyscraper. At the same time, these 4 lessons aren't just for you, they're for humanity. We live on a broken planet, obsessed with looking perfect on social media. While hiding its cracks, Japan whispers, show the gold. We live in an era of epidemic anxiety where nobody can stay in silence without panicking. Japan whispers, emptiness heals. We live in a culture of control where entire therapies exist because we can't accept the unacceptable. Japan whispers, let go. We live in a world divided between those who idolize the past and those who reject it completely. Japan whispers, dance. You who have connection with this country, born here, living here, or just loving from afar, were chosen to be a messenger. You don't need to preach. You need to embody. When you accept your imperfections and still love yourself, you teach wabi-sabi without saying a word. When you breathe deeply, create pauses, listen more than you speak, you teach ma without sermon. When you release what you can't control and find peace in it, you teach shiganai without effort. When you respect your roots, but don't let them suffocate you, you teach the dance. And the world is watching because secretly everyone is tired of pretending. Everyone wants permission to be imperfect. Everyone needs silence, but is afraid to admit it. Everyone is exhausted from controlling, but doesn't know how to stop. Everyone is stuck between past and future, not knowing how to integrate. Japan is not just a country. It's a spiritual code, written in falling cherry blossoms and broken and rebuilt ceramics, in rock gardens and emptiness in ancient temples, beside neon lights. And you, who carry this code in your heart, have been activated. Your mission now is to live these lessons so fully that people around you begin asking the right questions. How are you so peaceful? How do you handle imperfections so well? How do you release things with such grace? How do you balance tradition and innovation? And when they ask, you'll smile and perhaps, just perhaps, whisper, I learned from Japan. And the seed will be planted in one more soul who will awaken. And the cycle continues because Japan is not a destination. It's an origin of a new way of existing that the world is desperate to learn